everybody, we're going to bend these ukulele sides today, and I learned how to do this from Shar at Maya Moe. She bent most of the sides at Maya Moe. I did a fair bit of it, and I used to help her take them out of the bender when she would come back out to the shop during the day. So whenever I smell cooking myrtle, I think of them. So yeah, this is a side bending jig that's going to use a heat blanket and a thermostat to bend our sides. I've got one of these inserts here for each size and shape of ukulele, and I still have the Maya Moe shapes up there. So to begin with, these have been thickness sanded. They've been cut to a profile, and I've marked a mark on there so I know where to put it. So first thing I'm going to do is take my spray bottle and get them wet. And since it's just spraying, you just coat it. It gets wet that way. It's not like we're soaking it or anything, so you can't really overdo it with the spraying. But then we've got two sheets of spring steel with some tin foil wrapped around it with a mark for the waist, so I don't get that mixed up. So I'm going to place these in there. And you want it to be even so that it bends symmetrically. And then I'll put my tops. So here's our sandwich. And then here's the marks for the waist. I'm going to slide this in the jig and put this heating blanket on. The heating blanket comes from LMI, I think. LMII. Now I'm going to turn it up one notch below all the way up, and I'm going to set it at about 10 minutes. It's not going to take that full time, but you'll see why in a little bit. Now, spring clamps. That's to hold the blanket down to the spring steel. And then the last thing that's important, cooking thermometer. And it's set to beep at me when it hits 200 degrees, no, 210, and then I'll go a little bit higher than that. So it's going right now. And then in my little drawer here, I still have my instructions from when Shar taught me how to do it, and my little Maya Moe card. This is nostalgia. So yeah, I'm gonna let this go till it beeps. Okay, so you hear the beeping? That means we're at 210. I'm gonna press the button again. It's gonna let it go. I'll let it go to about 225. My timer's still got time on it. Yep. Thermostat's still at seconds at the top. By the way, it's been about 5 minutes since I paused the video last. And yeah, we're almost there. Okay, so now I'm at as hot as I want to get, about 225. And so I'll take the thermometer out. I'll do the waist first. Now the spring clamps. Now these are held on by these springs on the side. There, so that just bent the upper bout. Now I'll do the lower bout. Okay, so these springs are really strong. You can see the steam is coming out. These springs are really strong, but it doesn't quite pull it in all the way. First I'm going to turn my thermostat down to low, and there's about 5 minutes left on there, so it just kind of cooks them while we're in there. I'm going to add these blue spring clamps just to pull it in that last little bit. There we go. Yeah, Henry, you can. There, and the upper bout's pulled in now too. So here I'll show you the so heating blanket is plugged into thermostat, plugged into timer, plugged into the wall. So I'm gonna let this sit overnight. It's turned down to low, and it'll click off in a couple minutes. I'm gonna let this sit overnight, and we'll check it out when we take it out later. Okay, so it's time to take our sides out of the bender here. I'm going to start by just doing these 4 blue clamps. And then this is where it's a little tricky because these springs are really strong. Things can snap around. You know, gotta be careful. That's one of the reasons that Char used to prefer to do this with 2 people. The other good thing about doing it with 2 people is you can reach your hands in here and make sure that, you know, these sides aren't springing back extra. They're pretty flexible still, but you wouldn't want them to crack. So let's undo this. Pull pin. Okay, so they're down to room temperature. They're pretty dry. There's a couple little things I'm going to tweak on the hot iron in the other room. Okay, let's get in there. Okay, so the molds that I used to build my instruments in and the forms I made for that bender, they're the same shape. So sometimes the wood gets a little spring back, which I haven't really accounted for yet. I need to remake my bending forms. So in the meantime, what I sometimes have to do is just take these sides to the hot iron. So this is an electric heating element inside this aluminum pipe, and it's got a thermostat on the front. And I have built many ukuleles just with one of these, but the other tool is a little bit more consistent. I just might need to tweak sometimes. So all I have to do is that I want to give this a little more curve, so it's a little sharper. And then at the end here, you can see that this end didn't bend square. And although this is some extra length, I still want to make this part square, so I'm going to fix this bend a little bit. So doesn't take much. Spray some water on there. Technique for the iron, it's really all about feel, and you only learn how to do it by breaking wood, unfortunately. So you can kind of feel when it really releases and it's done the bend. And let me just touch this one real quick. Sometimes certain bends respond better to motion on the iron. Some you can just hold still. Here we go. So I tweaked that one and that one. Here. Much better. So I'm just going to use another one of these, a couple of these clamps, just to keep that in here while it cools. So that will help it keep its shape. How about a closer look here? Okay, so let's do this one. My first 10 or 12 ukuleles I bent on one of Nicole's curling irons. It did not work very well. But I learned that sometimes you do need to buy the right equipment. And then I made many, and have recently made many just on this iron without the bending machine in the other room. But the bending machine does come in handy, makes things quicker sometimes. Much better. So now I'm going to check it in this mold here. Yeah, it's better. So clamp it up again. It's super easy to burn wood this way, scorch it. Sometimes the scorch marks aren't going to stand out, so you got to be real careful. Okay, turn this off. We don't want to fire. So now the sides are in here. These are the 2 areas on each one that I worked on a little bit. They just need to come back down to room temperature and they'll be ready to go. So these sides are bent, and I can get the blocks in them and make a uke.